We demand change. We demand that they speak out against, all these terrible things that are happening because, something that hurts Nigerians abroad hurts us here.
Windsorites worry for family back in Nigeria as thousands continue to demonstrate against police brutality. They want the government of Canada to take a stand. It is that frightening time of year, Halloween. Now, lucky for Windsor, Essex, the pandemic isn't stopping us from celebrating, but it won't be quite the same experience. A live look outside tonight as the sun reflects on that building there. A final push to brighten up the day here in Windsor. 16 degrees outside right now. Colette Kennedy joins us with the full forecast later tonight. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for watching. Nigeria has come into the global spotlight after 2 weeks of nationwide protests. Locally, a call for Canada to do more as citizens rise up against allegations of systemic police brutality. Now, today, the president of Nigeria spoke directly to protesters.
I therefore call on our youth to discontinue the street protests and constructively engage government in finding solutions. Your voice has been heard, loud and clear.
Now, the country's largest city under a curfew, police are arresting people in the streets. This comes after reports of police shooting into a crowd of protesters on Tuesday. Since then, looting and fires have erupted, even an attempted jailbreak. Thousands of Nigerians have been demonstrating against a police unit called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, or SARS. Rights groups accuse them of extortion, harassment, torture, and murders. For Nigerians living here in Windsor, it's difficult for them to be so far away from family and friends while this all unfolds. Our Jacob Barker spoke with members of the community today, hearing from them about what's going on back home. Jacob, how are they dealing with all this?
Well, Chris, those that I spoke with today are very worried, and they're calling home constantly to make sure everybody's okay. And they do want to hear from the Canadian government on the matter and see action.
I can't go over and see my family and talk to them in person. Only a phone call can do so much. So my heart aches for my family, but we're not the ones who are the most harmed right now. The ones who've been the most harmed are those who've lost their family, and my heart goes out to them, regardless of ethnicity. Any Nigerian who's lost their family to police brutality, my heart aches for them. I want to call on the Canadian government to put sanctions against Buhari and to speak out against Buhari and the Nigerian government. Obviously, I don't, because, when sanctions are put against it, hurts Nigerian people. But, Nigeria is one of the leading producers of crude oil, and if they can say that they will not take Nigerian oil until Buhari steps down or until he ends police brutality, I think is necessary. If Doug Ford, Justin Trudeau, any member of government from Canada could publicly denounce Buhari and his corruption against Nigerian people, I think that's what I want to say. To turn to them now, just to say that the Nigerian people and the Nigerian diaspora, we are citizens to you. And we demand change. We demand that they speak out against, all these terrible things that are happening because, something that hurts Nigerians abroad hurts us here.
It's upsetting because, when this is that's your home, that's where you come from. You see the people that you originate from suffering in such a manner when this shouldn't actually be happening. It's very upsetting, but at the same time, I know that it's something that has to be done because they have been protesting against this for such a long time and there has never been any change. So sometimes protests like this and to this magnitude bring about world attention, and maybe now the government will be forced to do something. Most of my family is still there, so I've been calling, and a lot of them are afraid of what's going on because it's the unknown, right? You don't know what type of result it's going to have in your country. But I have been calling and calling to make sure that they're okay, make sure they're not in the line of fire, make sure none of them have been kidnapped, because we do have different people in our family that are in different positions, some, in the government, some the children of. So it's a really sticky situation, but, it doesn't give you a good feeling when you're on this side and you don't really know what's happening.
So we're hearing from people in Windsor, but what has the Canadian government said so far about the situation in Nigeria, Jacob?
Yeah, well, I haven't been able to find any big proclamations from the government or actions as of yet, but there was some word from Global Affairs Canada on Twitter saying Canada is deeply concerned about the excessive use of force during the ongoing protests in Nigeria, and those responsible for human rights violations and abuse must be held accountable. The Nigerian community here also plans to hold a rally to show their support for those in Nigeria that will take place this weekend along the waterfront. Chris?
Thanks for this, Jacob. The CBC's Jacob Barker live tonight. Drug charges have been dismissed for the former boss of the local Crime Stoppers. John Paul Fuller was charged with production of marijuana and possession of marijuana for the purpose of trafficking. Police seized $2.9 million worth of marijuana plants in a grow-op in Leamington back in 2016. The Crown had asked for a stay in the proceedings, but the charges were dismissed last Friday. Through his lawyer, Fuller says he's happy to have this whole thing behind him. After a day with no new cases today, Windsor, Essex has 7 more cases of COVID-19. There are 841 province-wide that were announced today. In Chatham, Kent, 14 active cases right now. There's also a community outbreak on the radar of health officials in Chatham, Kent. They say it's linked to a place of worship, but won't say which one. However, the Blenheim Word of Life Church posted a message on Facebook this week saying one of its families tested positive for COVID-19. The pastor has been told to self-isolate for 2 weeks, and he voluntarily closed the church for that time. Public Health has also notified others who were close contacts of the positive case. Yesterday, we also learned 2 people from St. Anne Catholic School in Benham tested positive. The health unit says they contracted the infection outside of school and are self-isolating. It's unclear if the school cases are connected to those at the church. MPs debated a new motion today by the Conservatives, this one focusing on the government's pandemic response. It calls for an investigation by the Health Committee into the government's handling of COVID-19.
To all Canadians waiting for medical equipment, for ventilators to arrive, for all the Canadians hoping to get rapid testing in hours-long lineups, and to all Canadians having lost a loved one to this virus, you deserve answers. Canada needs to be better prepared.
A vote on the matter could take place on Monday. The question now is, does this become a confidence vote? That's what happened yesterday when the Tories introduced a motion to set up a special committee to investigate the We Charity affair and other allegations of corruption. The NDP joined the Liberals in rejecting the motion. Otherwise, the vote could have sparked an election. Today, the Bloc Québécois was asked if a 6-week election campaign wouldn't hurt people who need government help because of the pandemic. Now, the leader compared the Liberal government to hostage takers.
This is the very principle of an hostage issue. This is what they do. They take all the businesses who need help in Canada and they stick a knife under their throat. And they tell the Bloc Québécois and the Québécois and the Canadians and the Conservatives, do what we say or we won't help those businesses. This is a terrible thing to do in a democracy.
The Ontario government today tabling legislation that it says will speed up major infrastructure projects in Ontario.
Accelerating the delivery of these projects will boost our economy and help put more people back to work faster.
Now, the legislation is called the Ontario Rebuilding and Recovery Act. The minister says it will help get transit, long-term care homes, hospitals, highways, and broadband projects done in less time. Kingsville's Megan Augusta has helped Canada dominate on the rink at the highest levels, but tonight she'll step on the ice completely out of her comfort zone. She's ditched the hockey gear for figure skates, competing in this year's Battle of the Blades. I caught up with her to hear what training's been like, the personal story behind the charity that she's competing for, and got a bit of a tease of what fans might expect.
What was it like for you when you first put the figure skates on ice?
Kind of like really weird. I was very hesitant and I felt like the ice was like pushing me back kind of thing. And I was always like thinking, okay, don't forget about the toe pick. And it took me 3 weeks coming here to finally toe pick and fall, which it was like an elegant fall. And I toe picked again yesterday, but for the most part, it's like you start to get like comfortable and confident, but you can't forget about it because when you do, that's when you kind of hit it and fall. And I think a lot of people ask me like, what was your fear? Like I would say for sure the toe pick. And then the second thing was just kind of making that transition. I think to be able to like give up your hockey equipment and your hockey skates for something that is totally new. Like, I mean, I figure skated when I was 4 till about 6, but I don't remember, right? So to trade in, my hockey equipment and skates for, now like tights and a skating dress and figure skates with toe picks is definitely totally out of my comfort zone. But then again, I'm up for the challenge, and it just goes to show you, if you don't try something, you're never going to know, and don't be afraid to fail.
To have fun and to be able to do something that could support others, the charity that you picked, how did you come to this decision?
Well, Andrew and I will be skating for the BC Children's Hospital Foundation, and the foundation focuses on a quest to ensure that kids receive the best health care imaginable. And, this is something that touches me personally because Chance was premature and she had to stay in the NICU for 3 weeks. And the experience that I had there with the doctors and nurses was phenomenal. And, I want other families to have that same experience, whether, they have a premature baby or, their child's going through chemotherapy or whatever. And also with the Vancouver Police, I'm there all the time with a lot of children and their families with, the mental health side of things. So I thought it would be perfect. I always, I love kids. I want to give back, and to be able to do a charity that is very near and dear to my heart means a lot.
There's also a bit of a spectacle here. Before you go, do you want to maybe tease a move or a costume that people should be keeping an eye out for?
Well, I'll just give I'll give like the viewers one hint, Celine Dion.
Oh.
That's the only hint I'm going to give. And the second thing is I will be in a figure skating dress. So I'm totally going to be out of my element. It's pretty crazy, like the screens and the LED lights and just, the whole feel of skating out onto the ice. The ice is black this year, so that's a change as well. So yeah, all these different changes, and again, just up for that challenge and getting out of your comfort zone, and just really enjoying the moment and having fun.
Your little ghost or goblin will still be able to get their treats or tricks this year, but because of COVID-19, many have found ways to make it a little safer for all. Dale Molnar got a peek at the precautions underway.
I warned you about overstaying your welcome. Do not test me.
The owner of Scarehouse Windsor says business has been off a bit compared to last year, but he says there is still a steady stream of customers coming in for a bite and a fright.
We tell this story while you're eating dinner, right from your first course right up to dessert.
But the Haunted Experience place on McDougall Avenue is practicing social distancing, sanitizing, and other measures to keep everyone safe. They also feel incorporating COVID-19 into the fear theme would be insensitive, so you won't see anyone in hazmat suits.
So what we decided was that we wouldn't use the word COVID, and we treat it like the F word in church.
So we're gonna pack this full so when kids come, they go, wow, man, look at all the candy.
In order to practice social distancing, Brad Watson of Tecumseh is going to put the candy in the trunk of his car and let the trick-or-treaters help themselves. He calls it trunk or treat. He says even though we are in the midst of a pandemic, he says the kids still have to have their fun.
I get it that we want a 0% exposure. I don't think that that's realistic, and I think the lean towards that too heavily, I think then takes away from the other parts of life that actually make life worth living.
So I'll be grabbing these right out of the box with tongs, and I have these packaged for the older kids.
Jennifer LaChapelle goes all out for Halloween at her house on Ypres. She usually gets about 200 kids, so she's worked out a system.
I'm gonna make a chute, like a candy chute or luge, and I package it up my candy and I'm gonna use tongs to throw it down.
I will show you what happens to guests that take advantage of our hospitality inside Scared Evil Haunted House.
Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Police board member and city councilor Reno Bordelin says the Windsor Police Service will soon allow officers who transport prisoners to the detention center to carry naloxone. He asked a question about it during today's police board meeting. He says it's been approved for officers, but the naloxone hasn't been issued yet. Bordelin also says Chief Pam Mizuno is looking at equipping other units with the drug that can reverse an opiate overdose. Now, you'll remember earlier this month, CBC News was first to tell you that Windsor Police is considering equipping some units with naloxone, and that over about a year, Windsor police officers responded first to at least 14 overdose calls where naloxone was used. Windsor Police is the only major force in Ontario that doesn't permit its officers to carry naloxone. And this as the local health unit put out an alert about overdoses just today. From October 13th to the 20th, they say there were 11 opioid overdoses. 8 of those were fentanyl. They also say that in a 24-hour period on Tuesday, there were 9 substance misuse and overdose-related emergency room visits. Donald Trump and Joe Biden go head-to-head tonight in their second and final debate before the presidential election on November 3rd. Their last showdown was a chaotic affair with candidates talking over each other and even shouting. Now, to prevent that from happening again, a significant change has been made to the format, and the president isn't happy about it. The CBC's Ellen Morrow has the details.
The final presidential debate will happen here, Nashville's Belmont University. Inside, the stage is set. The candidates' microphones, they'll be muted at certain points, trying to limit the incessant interruptions of round one.
Radical left. Will you shut up, man?
Listen, President Trump has criticized nearly every aspect of the debate.
Well, I think the mute is very unfair, and I think it's very bad that they're not talking about foreign affairs. They're supposed to be talking about foreign affairs.
Down in the polls and running out of time, tonight is perhaps Trump's last best chance to gain ground. Allies have said Trump should focus on policy and tone down the attacks, but the president is expected to target Joe Biden's son, Hunter, and his business dealings. Biden has been off the campaign trail this week preparing for the debate.
Hopefully he's going to play by the rules. Hopefully everybody's been tested. Hopefully it's all worked out this way the rules are. I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
His task tonight, avoid any major gaffes that could blow his lead in national polls with less than 2 weeks to go before Election Day. The debate starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. There will be 6 15-minute segments. The microphones will only be muted for each candidate to have 2 minutes to speak uninterrupted at the beginning of each round, leaving plenty of time for open debate and interruptions afterwards. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
A live look at City Hall right now. Tonight, it will be lit up purple and blue, part of the Light It Up campaign to recognize National Disability Employment Awareness Month and the many ways those with a disability contribute to businesses in our community. Now, coming up after the break, we'll hear from Colette Kennedy about the weather and what the weekend has in store. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, I'm just taking a look out at the windows here. The sun is poking its head out finally after a bit of a dreary day, but shaping up for a beautiful sunset tonight.
Yeah, it's been tough with a lot of cloud cover around the high, up to about 17 degrees for today. You know, we've come to the point in the season where we've had the opportunity to talk about frost, and it's not often once we get to that point that I need to back up and talk about humidity and the humidex. But here we are, because tomorrow we are going to have some humidity to talk about. So let me just work you through everything. We'll start off with the winds and the wind direction, and that's kind of what's happening with this system that's going to be moving through here. For now, we're looking at kind of an easterly flow, but as it turns around towards the south and eventually southwest, those winds will get somewhat strong through the day on Friday. So some breezy conditions in a few spots. We may even see at times those winds exceeding not just 60, but potentially momentarily even 70 kilometers an hour. But I have us in for 50 to 60 for some of the wind gusts. So that's going to push the temperatures up, certainly. These are the current readings where we've dropped to. So 16 for Windsor, 14 Chatham-Kent is where you sit right now. The warm front to the north of us, to the north of that, so kind of on the cold side of the warm front, meaning where it's not taking effect, into northeastern Ontario, Timmins, regions like that, they may pick up to 10 centimeters of snow as this system moves through. We're definitely in the warm sector. I mentioned the humidex. So this is what's going on with this system. As it goes in, it's not just the winds we're talking about. We'll eventually see that cold front moving through. But as it plays out, we do get clearing eventually overnight tonight. I know the sun just trying to peek its way out. So some sunshine to start off, then clouds building back in through the day. That corridor in between is our warming sector. So the longer the front holds off, the better our chances. I see us getting into the low 20s. I put us up to 23 for the high, but into the afternoon, we'll start to see some showers, perhaps a few embedded thunderstorms developing as it goes through. Then we will see the colder air filtering in behind it. A gradual clearing as we go into Saturday. It'll take some time. Your temperatures tonight, then they're nearly steady and then beginning to rise as we go towards morning in that flow. There's your humidex, maybe 23. It's going to be feeling close to 30. And then you have to do, Chris, a big turnaround because the contrast with those temperatures is huge into the weekend.
That big switch, but humidity over the frost warning there. It's so interesting to have that this time of year.
It is. I mean, we have to do a big change, but it's a one-day only event.
One day only. I love that. Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
That switch to online learning, it's caused some concerns about possible cheating, but some of the tools people are using to solve that problem could be adding more stress to that experience. We'll have more next. Online learning at school has come with its success stories and its own problems. One concern, how easy it might be to cheat. But as Deanna Sumanak-Johnson shows us, the tools being used to solve that problem may be adding stress to an already stressful experience.
In a year where computer screens replaced lecture halls, academia's old foe has found a way to thrive.
Academic misconduct has globally been on the rise since the pandemic began.
Many universities are turning to new virtual exam monitoring. E-proctoring software is designed to prevent students from cheating while taking exams at home. Some of them take over your computer, disabling you from opening any other tabs or apps. Many of them keep your webcam on your face, recording everything from your eye movement to what's in your background as potential flags for cheating.
Every institution is probably considered e-proctoring tools. I would say there's pros and cons to using these tools. At the University of Waterloo, we do have access to proctoring software. However, it's not our first choice.
Exam security. And among the reasons for that is the increase in students' anxiety as their every motion is being monitored.
I've heard of reports of students throwing up into waste paper bins because they were being surveilled by an e-proctoring technology that said if they left their desk, they would fail their exams. That's wrong.
And that stress might multiply for students of color, a demographic that's already disproportionately targeted by accusations of cheating, says this New York professor.
There needs to be a certain amount of light in order to recognize someone's face. And so if you have darker skin in those situations, you are at a disadvantage.
With all that in mind, some universities are trying to bypass traditional exams altogether.
There's a lot of research showcasing that take-home exams, projects, essays, papers, labs, open book exams, those are better for students. They're better at assessing students' knowledge.
Learning on the fly in a year where both students and universities are being tested. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
A street artist in the UK has created a beautiful mural to salute healthcare heroes. Paintings meant to celebrate the diversity of Britain's National Health Service.
200 nationalities works for the NHS, and in this really tough time when the NHS is working even harder, we really wanted to celebrate them.
The artwork covers a full side of a 4-story building in London. It features images of flowers from people around the country. The artist calls the work a metaphor for the richness of the NHS because each flower is different and together they form something beautiful. We've certainly seen a lot of art popping up around Windsor-Essex during this time as well. It's 6:29 p.m. That's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor, where we have some stories about some of those artists and the work that they've been able to piece together. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Power and Politics is up next. That's it for us. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.